Hello everyone, Scott here. I just got out of seeing another movie. It's probably not the one you think. Notorious. Or as it's alternatively known, Conor McGregor Notorious, and that's probably how I'll post this. It's officially called Notorious. If you look at the indica on the back with the billing block, it just says Notorious. That's the actual title, so stop calling it Conor McGregor Notorious. He's the star of it. Don't worry, I got Star Wars here. But Notorious, it's a documentary made by Conor McGregor about Conor McGregor. He's an MMA fighter called the Notorious Conor McGregor. It's interesting because his story is a very, very interesting one. He's probably one of the biggest stars in MMA. You've probably heard of him without watching UFC stuff. He's up there with like a Ronda Rousey, like a superstar thing. He's been in a couple little movies, I think, here and there. Video games, he was in Call of Duty at one point, Infinite Warfare from last year. He's a megastar. He has commanded $1 million paydays when no one thought it was possible, and he's boxed Floyd Mayweather. The documentary is good, but as someone who knows stuff, it's a missed opportunity. And as someone who doesn't know stuff, you'll see why in a second. It's interesting to talk about spoilers for something that is literally based on the life story of something, so there's not really spoilers to talk about in this. But the movie opens up with Conor McGregor losing his first fight to Nate Diaz. And then it says 4 years earlier. And that's before he was in the UFC. And we show his journey getting in, trying to get in, struggling and scratching and clawing. Then he gets in there with the first fight leading up to it, and he wins it. And it's like, oh, the hype is real. And then it's like, then the train goes on. And it shows him like 2-0, 3-0, this quickly, 4-0. 5-0, and he's always talking about the champion, always wanting to go after him. And immediately I'm like, there's missed opportunity here, because in those fights he was saying, I need to fight this guy, and he's way above his level, fought him and beat him. He's like, I need to fight this guy, way above his level, fought him and beat him. It was a big fight in Boston, and he's Irish, so it's a big fan base thing. And then he's like, oh, 4-0, and then 3 or 4-0, whatever it was, and it was in Dublin, and he headlined it, and it was crazy big and massive, and it was against the last minute replacement. And he won. And like it happened. It should have been a thing because it was a big Irish MMA coming up party for that. And then he goes after the champion. Champion gets injured, and he has an interim title fight where he wins. And now he's the interim champion. Okay. And then he goes to fight the champion, and it's that awesome build up between the two, where he's this loudmouth braggart who's not even been there for 4 years. Versus the champion who's not been beaten in 10 years. 1 punch, 13 seconds. And he's the champ. And when he's celebrating, everything is great, we can move on, we can go, the music suddenly ramps up in an awesome way, and it's Nate Diaz. When he cut a promo on him, where he says, you know where the real money fight is, and he's swearing all up and down. It's like, where are you at? Come and fight me. And then they say that fight's booked. Now I've glossed over stuff, and that's the problem. They skip over a lot of things because Nate Diaz was a last-minute replacement. Well, I mentioned there already was another one before with the Ireland fight with Diego Brandao, and there was one with Jose Aldo being injured, and he had the interim title fight with Chad Mendes. So this is the third time. And he was supposed to fight Rafael dos Anjos, the lightweight champion at the time, because he was a 2-division champion in his prior organization, and he wanted to do it in the UFC. No one ever had. Only a couple of guys ever did win titles in 2 divisions, Randy Couture, BJ Penn. That's it. Of course, if I'm forgetting one, it's going to be embarrassing as hell. But no, he was the third, I'm pretty sure, and Georges St. Pierre has gone on to. But that's it. And no one's ever done it at the same time. Barely any even have tried. So Conor wanted to do it. Guy got hurt. And we go over to have Nate Diaz accept it. Well, 145 is the weight limit Conor fought at, the featherweight title. That's who he beat in 13 seconds. 155 is the lightweight title. That's Dos Anjos. 170 is welterweight. That's the next one up. And because it was 2 weeks' notice, they needed a replacement. Conor said, I'll fight anybody, doesn't matter. And then it was Nate Diaz, a lightweight who sometimes fights a middleweight or welterweight and has a hard time cutting down. Like, I'll fight him at welterweight. That's insane. Why would you fight him? But he took the fight. But they just treated it like, oh, he's going to fight him. Then the fight happens, and he loses. And now it's the redemption, the rebuild, and they just say a rematch was booked. Well, a rematch wasn't just booked. He put off defending his featherweight title he skipped a press conference because he was going to headline UFC 200, the big major event in July of that year, and instead didn't go to the press conference because he was too busy training, because he was that much of a lunatic that he had to beat Diaz. Also, the rematch, which was a big money fight everyone wanted to see, like with proper training camps, not last minute stuff, was at the same weight. Like, he wanted to prove he could beat Diaz at welterweight. None of that's covered. He just had a rematch. No one believed he could win, and he won. That's the story they told. Not this other stuff, where they already established this guy will fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. They did show that once with the interim, but that's it. And he wins it, and he overcomes. And that's the story it tells. Problem is, it then says he went on to defeat Eddie Alvarez to become lightweight champion, the first to hold 2 titles in the UFC at the same time. And it shows him holding the belts. That's a bigger story. It's a different guy now. It's Eddie Alvarez. He headlined the first major event in New York City at Madison Square Garden. These are all big things. Why is it not covering that? Why is it cutting there? And then it goes into the credits and shows him in his lead up to the boxing fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr., which nobody thought he could ever do. That no one ever thought it would happen. Like, the UFC had to agree to contract stuff. That's not even covered. He just went and he did it. And he lost in 10 rounds against the best boxer of his generation. During the credits. This movie should have been at least 2 hours, not 90. As someone who knows the story, it's frustrating to see them skip over stuff which benefits the story. As someone who doesn't know the story, it's like, why are you covering that? Why are you covering the fact that he made bigger history fighting Mayweather and getting the lightweight title? That's bigger than anything that happened here. That said, it is fun. It is interesting. One review that I can kind of agree with said that there's no sympathetic hero in this Rocky story. And yeah, Conor's a big, loudmouth braggart, but he backs everything up. So, I don't have a problem with that. I definitely recommend it. I think I gave it 3 stars, because it's lacking. It's incomplete. It seems like this thing came out like a month too early. They could have easily done some stuff and just fixed in the final part of it. Like, if they ended with the boxing stuff proper and showed the little bits I mentioned, I'd give it easily 4 stars. But it's lacking. It is one of the best of its kind, though. It is interesting to watch. No other thing has had this kind of access or coverage, so it's good, but yeah. But do check it out. Check out everything on GuiltyPleasureCinema.com, Cyclops Scott here on YouTube, and of course all the socials as well. I'll see you next time, which, yeah, it's going to be Star Wars. Don't worry, that's coming next. See you then.